The Big Orange Splot by Daniel Pinkwater. Mr. Plumbeam lived on a street where all the houses were the same. He liked it that way. So did everybody else on Mr. Plumbeam's street. This is a neat street, they would say. Then one day, a seagull flew over Mr. Plumbeam's house. He was carrying a can of bright orange paint. No one knows why. And he dropped the can. No one knows why. Right over Mr. Plumbeam's house. It made a big orange splot on Mr. Plumbeam's house. Oh, too bad, everybody said. Mr. Plumbeam will have to paint his house again. I suppose I will, said Mr. Plumbeam, but he didn't paint his house right away. He looked at the big orange splot for a long time. Then he went about his business. The neighbors got tired of seeing that big orange splot. Someone said, "Mr. Plumbeam, we wish you'd get around to painting your house." "Okay," said Mr. Plumbeam. He got some blue paint and some white paint, and that night he got busy. He painted at night because it was cooler. When the paint was gone, the roof was blue, the walls were white, and the big orange splot was still there. Then he got some more paint. He got red paint, yellow paint, green paint, and purple paint. In the morning, the other people on the street came out of their houses. Their houses were all the same, but Mr. Plumbeam's house was like a rainbow. It was like a jungle. It was like an explosion. There was the big orange splot, and there were little orange splots. There were stripes. There were pictures of elephants and lions and pretty girls and steam shovels. The people said Plumbeam has popped his cork, flipped his wig, blown his stack and dropped his stopper. They went away muttering. That day, Mr. Plumbeam bought carpenter's tools. That night, he built a tower on the top of his roof, and he painted a clock on the tower. The next day, the people said, Plumbeam has gushed his mush, lost his marbles, and slipped his hawser. They decided they would pretend not to notice. That very night, Mr. Plumbeam got a truck full of green things. He planted palm trees, baobabs, thorn bushes, onions, and frangipani. In the morning, he bought a hammock and an alligator. When the people came out of their houses, they saw Mr. Plumbeam swinging in a hammock between two palm trees. They saw an alligator lying on the grass. Mr. Plumbeam was drinking lemonade. Plumbeam has gone too far. This used to be a neat street. Plumbeam, what have you done to your house? The people shouted. My house is me and I am it. My house is where I like to be, and it looks like all my dreams, Mr. Plumbeam said. The people went away. They asked the man who lived next door to Mr. Plumbeam to go and have a talk with him. Tell him that we all liked it here before he changed his house. Tell him that his house has to be the same as ours so we can have a neat street. The man went to see Mr. Plumbeam that evening. They sat under the palm trees drinking lemonade and talking all night long. Early the next morning, the man went out to get lumber and rope and nails and paint. When the people came out of their houses, they saw a red and yellow ship next door to the house of Mr. Plumbeam. "What have you done to your house?" they shouted at the man. "My house is me, and I am it. My house is where I like to be, and it looks like all my dreams," said the man who had always loved ships. "He's just like Plumbeam," the people said. "He's got bees in his bonnet, bats in his belfry, and knots in his noodle." Then one by one they went to see Mr. Plumbeam late at night. They would sit under the palm trees and drink lemonade and talk about their dreams. And whenever anybody visited Mr. Plumbeam's house, the very next day that person would set about changing his own house to fit his dreams. Whenever a stranger came to the street of Mr. Plumbeam and his neighbors, the stranger would say, "This is not a neat street." Then all the people would say, "Our street is us and we are it. Our street is where we like to be and it looks like all our dreams." The end. Boys and girls, today I'm going to show you how to draw a simple house like Mr. Plumbeam's street. So we're going to use 2 elements of art using lines and shapes. All you need today is a blank piece of white paper, or even any color paper is fine, and a pencil and eraser just in case you make a mistake. So what we're going to do is draw very lightly first with our pencils. I'm going to start at the top of my paper here and make a horizontal line going across this way. Okay, just about that long. Then I'm going to take my finger and go down a little bit like this. You don't want to go too far down because we need to leave space down here for the rest of the house. And I'm going to make another horizontal line going this way. But I'm going to make it just a smidge longer than this line. Another horizontal line, just a little bit longer than the line on top. Then what I'm going to do is take and I'm going to connect those 2 lines using a diagonal or slanted line, like that. Connect the top to the bottom. Slanted or diagonal. Okay. Awesome. Now what I'm going to do is take and I'm going to go down towards the bottom of my paper and make another horizontal line about the same length of this line. So close to the bottom of your paper. There you go. Now I'm going to take and connect this to the bottom line you just drew with a vertical. Vertical lines go up and down. This is a little longer. That's okay. That's why I brought my eraser. I'm just going to clean that up. Okay. Same thing on the other side. We're going to connect those 2 lines using a vertical line. Excellent. Okay. Now what we're going to do is add a door. We're going to add some doors and windows using shapes and lines just like we made here. I'm going to make a rectangle for the door. And I'm even going to add, if you want to add a little doorknob, you can give it a circle. Circle. And then I'm going to add some squares for windows. Remember, squares are, all sides are the same, equal. So you want them to be the same length. I'm going to add a square on top, 2 on top, and then 2 on the bottom. Boys and girls, what I like for you to do, if you can, on your own, you're going to decorate this house as if you live there and it's a place where you dream. You can be as creative as you want, color it in, decorate it however you like. If you can, before you do that, before you add lots of bright colors, or however you choose to do it, go ahead and add, if you can, take a black or dark color marker and trace over those pencil lines so that they stand out and they're nice and bold. If you want, you can go ahead and add some vertical and then horizontal lines in the window. Okay, now before I'm going to color mine in, I'm going to trace it with a black Sharpie marker. So don't forget, boys and girls, I love to see your creation. If you want, you could even add a big orange splot on the top of your house. Or you don't have to, it's up to you. And then go ahead and let your imagination run wild and decorate it however you'd like. And then don't forget to share with Mrs. D. I love to see your creations. You could post them on our Google Classroom, or you can email them to me at denysk01@wsdmi.org. Bye, guys.